Now, we are just starting to get into kind of our studies of fitness testing, but I want to go through certain procedures that we need to follow here to make sure that when we conduct fitness tests, they are accurate. So I'm going to go through a process first of all. So step one, in terms of pre-test procedures, we are always going to calibrate equipment. Now, you might be thinking, hang on, James, are you literally saying measure the tape measure to check it is actually 20 meters for a yo-yo test or whatever? Well, yeah, I am. But I'm more specifically talking about checking, for example, that your multi-stage fitness test recording is accurate and does not have jumps and scratches or whatever, or your metronome for your Harvard step test is accurate and the correct rhythm. That is what we mean by a calibration. Yes, you can check your stopwatches are working. Yes, you can check that your tape measures are in fact measured. They're pretty likely to be, but nevertheless. Now, why do we do this? We do this because this causes reliability. In other words, if we do the test more than once, it's likely to achieve the same results. Secondly, we are interested in completing informed consent, complete informed consent, and that effectively is allowing your participants to know what you are doing and to give consent and agreement. And this is where you get your legal cover from. And what I mean by that is once you've got agreement and people are happy to participate, then of course if something goes wrong, it doesn't necessarily come back to you. It's a protection. But it's also important to stress that one of the things that they can do with this informed consent is that they can withdraw at any time, and they need to know what is expected. So that evidence, and needs to be signed, by the way, so that there's actually evidence of that. Thirdly, we are going to complete a PAR-Q. Now, remind yourselves, a PAR-Q is a physical activity readiness questionnaire. Physical activity, why is that so long to write? Readiness. It's a really long thing. Questionnaire with an awkward spelling at the end. Questionnaire. And effectively this allows a participant to express if there's any medical or health conditions, and of course if they are, then we're not going to carry on with the fitness testing. We're probably going to refer them to a doctor or whatever it happens to be. We're not going to be the person that tries to solve that problem for them. Okay, so they need to be safe. And then fourthly, in this stage, we're also talking about a participant pre-fitness test. A participant pre-fitness test check. And just to be clear, just bear with me or I'll write this down. Just to be clear, we want to be checking what prior exercise has the participant done. Can they determine the intensity of exercise they're running at? So this could be something like very young people might not know that they're working anaerobically. It could be that someone's just completed a football match 5 minutes ago and they really shouldn't be doing the test at this moment. We just want to check those details. Now, more generally, I want to get into here requirements of each test. Now, we're going to go through the protocols of every test that's relevant to us, requirements for each test. So we're going to go through each individual test, but I'm going to talk generally about things that we need to be considering, all of which need to be considered. So first of all, we need to have a knowledge of the standardized test, of the standard test protocol. Okay, so what I mean by that is we can't just implement a sit and reach test without knowing how to implement it. We must know the protocol, otherwise this is absolutely pointless. We must have a knowledge of standard test equipment, So if we are doing a bioelectrical impedance analysis for our spectroscopy or analysis, we must know how that works, right? Otherwise, what's the point? This doesn't make any sense. We can't conduct it correctly. We must make sure that we get accurate measurement. Okay, so we must obviously sometimes have a measuring methodology, accurate measurement, because if we are half a second out on the agility run or the 30-meter sprint, or whatever it happens to be, that becomes an invalid result. We must have the knowledge of how to process results. So we don't just remember them in our head. We have a record sheet. We know who we're recording the score. Is it the participant or the administrator or the assistant that's doing that? We must know that. We must have access to published data tables. Okay, so we must have what we call normative data tables. So we should have those in advance so we know that when the score comes in, we can make that comparison. We must have the appropriate test. Let's put it up here. We must have the appropriate test, and we select the appropriate test on a series of factors, folks. So the first one is the purpose. What is it that this person or this group actually want to go and achieve? What is the situation? For example, are we testing at the start of pre-season? Is there a match on Saturday? Whatever happens to be. What about the appropriate test for the participants? This notion of kind of individuality. We need to be not picking maximal tests, for example, for children who might suffer with motivational issues or even things like anxiety, whatever it happens to be. These are the things we must make sure. Now, obviously, in other tutorials, we're going to go through the specific protocol, the specific equipment, how we measure, how we compare. That's the very nature of the tutorials I'm going to provide on each of those fitness tests. But this is the general picture. We've got a 4-part process with regard to pre-test procedures, and these are the requirements for each test. Thank you.